And U.S. President Donald Trump has said China is not a currency manipulator, contradicting claims he had previously made. Of course, Trump's 180-degree turn comes just days after he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. What has triggered the change in Trump's rhetoric, and suddenly how will it affect the trade relationship between China and the U.S.? Well, our reporter Cui Hui'ao spoke to international economic expert Liu Baocheng to find out more.
Donald Trump said on Wednesday in an interview with the Wall Street Journal that Beijing has not been manipulating its currency for months. Trump also said that imposing the manipulator label now could jeopardize his talks with China on confronting the threat posed by the DPRK. That means the Treasury Department would not label China a currency manipulator in its semi-annual report on foreign exchange policies due later this week.
People say, well, Donald Trump has changed his mind. I should say that he is really returning back to the ration of his mind now that he is reviewing the reality that China is not really satisfying the criteria that is being laid out. Requirements such as the percentage of the currency manipulation to the impact of the global trade and percentage of the contribution to the trade surplus, and then also whether the currency that is under spot will be able to move in one direction or two directions.
U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly accused China of currency manipulation throughout his campaign last year and even ranging back to 2015. But once again, Trump has flip-flopped on his campaign rhetoric, claiming China is no longer a currency manipulator. What would this turnabout mean for the future of the trade relationship between the two countries? Trump once said he would impose tariffs of up to 45% on China if Beijing does not negotiate better trade terms with the United States. Trump's about turn may signal a change in that approach as well.
So this gives the confidence to all the major trading players, both from the exporter, the importer, distributors, etc., and also American consumers are putting their heart in the right place. So this really cleared the way and cleared the uncertainty and gave more confidence to those market players along the entire value chain.
Liu says Trump's new rhetoric will also help China itself to move ahead with currency reform and push forward the liberalization of the yuan. Cui Hui'ao, CGTN, Beijing.
Well, let's get more on this. Simon Marks now joins us in Washington, D.C. Simon, welcome to the show. Now, what are the reasons behind President Trump's about turn on China? Of course, he's been so critical of the country during the campaign and certainly when he took office.
Very critical of China throughout the campaign, often using quite violent language rhetorically to describe China and the role that he at the time said it was playing with regard to the American economy. Now a complete 180-degree turn. He previously had said that he would brand China a currency manipulator on day one of his presidency. Well, he didn't do that. He didn't brand China a currency manipulator on day two. On day 82 of his presidency, he gave that interview to the Wall Street Journal saying that he had decided to abandon the plan altogether, and he cited a Treasury Department report that has been prepared and that argues that China is not, in fact, a currency manipulator. And President Trump, in that interview with the Wall Street Journal, said, well, China hasn't been manipulating the value of its currency for months. There are those observers here who argue that the die was cast some weeks ago, that many people within the Trump administration were arguing this was a move that, had the president taken it, would have been without any major rhetorical foundations. But it's also a move that sends a message to the rest of the world that Donald Trump is interested in negotiating with China rather than simply, in this case, applying that label to it.
Now, Simon, we have seen President Trump flip-flop on quite a number of issues. He also rubbished trade pacts that were set up during Obama's administration. Could we see him flip-flop on those two going forward?
Look, I'm bound to say at this point you could see him flip-flop on virtually anything. His own budget director yesterday described a pledge that Donald Trump had made to eradicate America's budget deficit when he was on the campaign trail as hyperbole. Now, supporters of Donald Trump, apparently, according to the budget director, have to get used to the fact that he didn't really mean it. On the issue of trade pacts, well, you've already seen him withdraw from American participation in the proposed Trans-Pacific Partnership. He wants whole chunks of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, to be renegotiated. It will be harder for him to change position on that, even if he wanted to, because so many of his core supporters, the wind behind him during the presidential campaign here in 2016 was very largely fueled by antipathy among voters to many of those trade deals. They believed Donald Trump when he said that those deals had resulted in jobs being exported. So unlikely that you'll see as dramatic a U-turn on those issues as we've seen on the issue of currency manipulation.
Now, like you said, Simon, he's flip-flopped on so many issues. We don't know what he'll flip-flop on next. But on the U.S. Fed Chair, Janet Yellen, he had said in the past he'd replace her when her term was up. Now he says she's not a toast, in quotes. Now, some say he needs her hawkish approach to support his tax reform policies and certainly spending going forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, imagine being Janet Yellen and reading that you are not considered toast by the President of the United States. Look, it seems likely that he has concluded that he needs Janet Yellen because of the expertise and steady hand that she brings to the tiller, at least over the short term. Also, bear in mind, there are thousands of government positions that Donald Trump needs to fill. He has filled a very small fraction of the number of positions that he's got to find people willing to take and willing to accept. Janet Yellen's in place. He's clearly concluding that she's doing a perfectly acceptable job. Why then create yet another government position that you need to fill, given that the focus of President Trump and his team over the short term has to be filling some of the positions that at the moment are vacant? So it would seem that as far as Janet Yellen is concerned, she is not toast, as the President of the United States has put it, and she can continue serving at least for the foreseeable future.
Well, thank you so much for those insights, Simon. Simon Marks joining us there in Washington, D.C.